This is Phantology.
You may have heard of us.
Okay, where to begin? I mean, we can talk characters, plot points, themes, all of the above.
Yeah, let's kind of just start with Robin. I think that it immediately how should I say this? One of the things that I both loved and was really hard about the book was how brutally death is handled, and that starts on page 1. Where page 1, his mom is dying, and a colonialist could have saved her, had it not been for his self-interest. And you're not really it starts off with you not really having to grapple too much with that because it's not focused on, but then you have to grapple with it later on in the book, which I feel like really kind of mirrors what Robin himself goes through.
Right.
And so I think that's really interesting. One thing about the very beginning of the book that I didn't love was that it brings up his name, and it says that, it says he has a name, of course, and then it says that it says something about there not being a great translation for it, or about it being hard for Westerners to say or something like that. So he adopts a new name or a different name. And I kind of thought that was a red or a Chekhov's gun or something that was going to play in for the ending of the book.
That could have been cool.
Personally, I thought it was he would have to translate his Chinese name to his Western name, and then that was going to have some crazy effect that would give him powers or something like that. I just in my head that I felt like it was setting that up, and it was oh, this is big brain, I'm calling this, and then it didn't really go anywhere. So I don't know, this just kind of rambling, but that was kind of my thought at the beginning of the book. I'm this name is going to be important, and then it just never comes back up. So yeah. Anyway, sorry for that.
I didn't think of that but I guess it would have been a really good twist if executed, because it would have blown my mind probably.
Yeah, throughout the book I'm his name's going to be important, and then as we learned more about the magic system, okay, this could be cool. Anyway, so, but yeah, with death and just violence in general, it's so brutally handled at the beginning, and then when Robin's going and spending time over at Lavelle's or Lovell, how were you saying this name? Lavelle?
I said Lovell.
Lovell. Yeah. So spending time at his mansion, and then he just messes up once, misses a class or something, or is late, and just gets beat with a poker, a fireplace poker. Again, so brutal, and kind of out of nowhere, very, very thematically fits in with the rest of the book. And the plot points. Yeah.
Very sinister undertones.
Mm-hmm.
And the book kind of slowly peels back the curtain on the themes more and more. At the beginning, Robin's younger, and it kind of mirrors Robin's maybe understanding of the world, or Robin's psyche. You're in his head most of the book, almost 95% of the book. There's a few chapters that are from a different perspective, or a different point of view. But as when he's younger, like you say, it's kind of, this adventure, he's going out to school and he's really smart and he loves this. And then all of a sudden his guardian, who he's, a little unsure about, but seems to be doing a lot for him, attacks him and beats him. And then there's no, the loop is never closed on it. It's never addressed. And now he's kind of living in fear of the only person that has, is his provider.
And this makes you start to see that Professor Lovell sees him as property. It's almost like how an owner would treat a dog, right? Where if they, and I'm not saying I don't condone this at all. I don't own a dog, but I don't think I would ever do this with a dog. But how you hear about people just if a dog, pees in the house or does something bad, they'll kick them, or do something to really show the dog that that's not an okay thing to do. You know what I mean? And again, I know that's animal cruelty. I'm not condoning that at all, but it seems that's kind of what the professor does with Robin, is he makes a little bit of mistake and he beats it out of him, because he doesn't really see him as human. He sees him as something that can be trained or sculpted to how he wants him to be, somebody that doesn't have agency because of his humanity, but is instead only worth as much as he can give Professor Level. So
right. And Professor Level, of course, we come to realize is his actual father. And that whole, I mean, to go a step further, like the whole thing is fascinating because he doesn't see Robin as human, yet he has, Robin and Griffin, his half brother, right? So he has these Chinese children, at least two, possibly more.
I think more. I got
the vibes that this was kind of what he was trying to do. So, he knew he needed native Chinese kids in order to have the access to the language and get the advantage for translation in that way. Yet he was never, he never had any understanding of the culture or the people, and always saw them as subhuman. And that really kind of starts to, I think that was maybe like the first grain of how rotten this culture was, and of these themes.
To me, he didn't really see himself as Robin's father because he didn't see Robin as human. So if somebody's not human, then they're not going to be your like offspring, if that makes sense. Like, he might have like understood it like theoretically, like biologically, I guess I'm their father, but like because they're like subhuman, I'm not like actually their father. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
he was just kind of like a little god, and this was his creation, but it wasn't necessarily his son.
Because you couldn't imagine doing it to his, I guess, for lack of a better word, like legitimate children that were mentioned like at the estate, which we see for about 1 or 2 pages or something later on in the book. But yeah, engrossing beginnings, the story, it kind of, again, like reminds me a little bit of Harry Potter, where there's like this orphan kid that's being mistreated at home and gets sent off to this magic school, right, where they get to learn and are kind of the star of the show there a little bit. And so yeah, it's obviously like a tried and true method, and immediately engrossed me.
Yeah, the magic school, always a fun setting. And in this case, it's Oxford, which is obviously a real school.
Well, Hogwarts is real too, but we'll just
right. Yeah, we just never got our letters. Yeah, it's still out there somewhere. So he gets in contact with his cohort, Remy, Victoria.
It's French, so it has some cool embellishment, I'm sure.
Yeah, my French is not even existing. So, and Letty, and the cohort bonds pretty. I mean, they all are minorities in different ways. Letty is the only one who's actually British, but she's a woman in a world that's very much dominated by men, and a university that's dominated by men. So I think she feels something of a kinship to them right away. Obviously, this difference between them will be very important later on. But I really enjoyed, like you say, at the beginning, it's fun as the cohort comes together. They go to their classes, they have little struggles and triumphs and failures, and this is all kind of fun stuff. It's the audience is like you were saying, kind of this younger adult or university adult type audience, and we all kind of gravitate towards these happy-go-lucky days at the university, and where trials are not too serious. But then before long, they do become more serious.
So as you've mentioned, the relationship between their cohort, I'm wondering, and I haven't heard many people talk about this, I'm interested to see what people think. To me, like, it came off as like there could have been a little bit of like a romance between Robin and Remy.
Yeah.
Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, I haven't heard anybody talk about that. I don't know if it was like there was a mention at the very beginning when they both met about like Remy or about Robin just like wanting to like reach up and like brush his cheek, like it seemed like if that, if you're reading that romantically, it seemed like it would be like, a lot of kind of like sexual tension. I'm not saying that like, guys can't be like friends and like, have like friendly touches like that, but like platonic. But I don't know, it just seemed a little bit like it was kind of like I don't know if like queer baiting is the right word, but like trying to like wrap people into like thinking that, but then not really doing a lot with it. And then
I
there's
mean, I thought there were some feelings there, but Robin himself was just like he was so out of touch with his sexuality, like it was never a part of his character at all in any way. So I think he just never even understood, what a romantic relationship would have been like, and so there was never any like progression.
I guess, yeah. So, and then it was mentioned that like Letty was obviously in love with Raimi, but Raimi never returned those feelings. And was that just because he couldn't get over the fact that she was white, or because he was in love with Robin slash wasn't attracted?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like
I couldn't get a read if Raimi had reciprocal feelings for Robin or not.
like it seemed like there were times when it was about to reveal it, like there was a time at the ball where it seemed like they were, I forget, there's like something where it's like if they would have said that, or if the words would have been left like wouldn't have been left unspoken, something like that.
One of those little things.
Yeah. So interesting. Maybe that can be a discussion in the comments below / on Discord. Because I haven't really heard any other reviews. I've listened to maybe like 5 or 6 reviews of it. I haven't heard that mentioned at all. So I'm interested to see what people think. It doesn't change a whole lot about the story either way, obviously. Like I don't know how the events would have played out differently. Maybe Letty's jealousy would have been either more or less justified, I guess, depending on how you look at it. And that might have changed her motivations a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think one of the dynamics here, which was interesting to me, was if you kind of dig into the Raimi Letty relationship a bit more, she had a lot of feelings for him, and she had those feelings, regardless of his ethnicity. She seemed to like genuinely love him or be romantically interested in him. I don't know if Raimi had any feelings for her, or if he did and couldn't get over the fact that, there was that huge racial divide and it was just bigger for him because he was on the minority side and knew that it would be such an issue if they were to have a relationship.
Yeah, not only that, but he had spent his entire childhood, and we don't get like a big, look into it, but we get the small glimpse of white people just treating him like he was a spectacle, and like he wasn't, like he was somebody to maybe be admired in some ways, but not really respected as an equal. And so, I think that would be really, really hard to be able to get over in a relationship if you had, grown your entire life to see, and that continued at Oxford and at Babel, right? Like that same kind of dynamic where he was seen as like a spectacle, but still shut out of coffee shops and like and stuff like that. And so it's really hard because, and when people talk about like reverse racism, like obviously, or about like about stereotypes or people not being willing to see others, like if you were to say like, oh, a brown person or like Indian person would not be willing to marry a white person, like that comes off as racist. But like when you consider that their entire life they've been mistreated / like looked down on by that type of people, like of course, like you wouldn't expect people to be able to like overcome that necessarily right away, especially at that stage of life. So anyway, just kind of interesting to think about, and we don't get answers to these questions, but they're interesting to think about.
I mean, it explores this a little bit with kind of trying to take Letty, like what you referenced earlier when she realized kind of what they're going through and broke down and was crying. They tried to kind of bring her into the fold and be, and say, here's the Hermes Society and, here's the lives that we live. And she was never able to understand completely, which, is also kind of understandable because that's her perspective and her life that she's lived. So I like that it kind of explores these dynamics without being too heavy-handed of like, you never got the sense that Letty was being condemned for her perspective or for her actions too harshly, because she wasn't, an evil person. She just wasn't able to understand what it was like.
Well, I mean, obviously, after, I think she does some condemnation after she pulls the trigger, but up until then, yeah, like they were willing to like try and be there to help her, right? Help her grow and help her see things the way that they did. But like also they were, getting into extremist actions, right? So it's that line of like, okay, how, and honestly, I think if Letty would have just left, like turned herself in / like just removed herself from the situation, I don't think that like that would have been an immoral thing for her to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But those were the only, these were her people, right? I mean, these were the only people that she had a real relationship to. So it just seems really tough for her to say, like, I'm going to completely write these guys off and separate from them. Like, I think it makes sense for her character to want to like fix things with them, to want to close the loop, to figure out some way to make it right. But she approaches it towards the end of the book. She approaches all of it from this stance that she has the moral high ground.
Yeah. And it continues to show that like her growth, while she might have been like starting to understand, like she wasn't taking the steps that she needed to like fully understand where they were coming from, what I mean? And like how they'd been trying for their entire lives to fix the system without violence, right? And that's the full name of, what's the full name of the book? Have you seen it? It's like Babel.
What does it say on your cover?
It just says Babel and Arcane History, but the full let me look it up so I get this like word for word right. Babel, or the Necessity of Violence, and Arcane History of the Oxford Translators Revolution.
Okay.
So like it's like, how necessary is violence, right? Like, would there have been a way to do this without violence? Is there a way to bring down like an empire / colonialists without being violent? And that's for sure explored like in great detail in the book, is that like, violence can be a shock to the system, like, and that shock might be the only way to like fix the system. Like obviously I consider myself like, I don't know if I'm like a hardcore pacifist. Like if somebody's coming in to like, hurt my family, like I'd for sure take whatever action I needed to like not have that happen. But I do consider myself like generally adverse to like being quick to be violent. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But this book, even with me, that has that's approaching it with this type of worldview, like it makes compelling points, right? That like their actions might have been the only way to proceed, might have been the only way to induce like any real change.
Right. So, and that's also the dynamic between Robin and Griffin. Griffin, his half brother, much more hot-headed, realizes that violence is the only way he's been able to see anything happen, any change happen, any shift in the power dynamic through his life. And Robin is a pacifist, at least in the beginning, and kind of comes to almost, adopt or kind of pick up the mantle after Griffin dies, especially is a big trigger for him. But then you also have Victory. Let's just say Victory.
I think it's like Victoire or something.
Victoire. Okay, we'll try that. Victoire.
I said Victory the entire time in my head whenever I read the name.
So did I. Yeah. She then kind of becomes the foil to Robin towards the end, where she's like, there are still ways to do this and kind of have almost a peaceful resistance. And at the end, she's like the only one standing. And I guess like it's maybe open to write some more from her perspective. But I kind of feel like the book was really good as a standalone, and we don't necessarily need more.
Yeah, for sure. I hope that if they do write more, then it's treated as like another standalone. Like I think it would be cool if it's like a completely like different character, and then Victoire comes in and like mentors them, you know what I mean? So if it like follows a
Mhm.
different character in like the Americas or something,
Uh-huh.
and then like halfway through the book, Victoria is introduced and like
Uh-huh.
kind of handled like that a little bit. So there's like
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of interconnectedness, but
And it
it's
would be
treated as
fascinating. I would love to know what happens with the whole silver economy
yeah,
after the revolution and after everything's destroyed. We don't know. We don't know how catastrophic it was.
yeah, I agree. Um, what did you think about the thing that I wish would have maybe been handled a little bit better is Robin's um change in character. And so I mean, I get that he's dealing with like the guilt of
Like from the
killing.
point where he kills Lovell.
Yeah. So there's definitely a marked change between when he kills Lovell, um, and then he's kind of goes into crisis management mode, but is still dealing with like feelings of grief. And then obviously when Letty kills Raimi, like then he's kind of completely changed, right, into an extremist. So it feels like he
Yeah.
goes from like some working within the system, has that experience where he goes to Canton and then kills Professor Level. That seems like that's kind of the death of him being able to work in this within the system, both like
Uh-huh.
symbolically. But then it goes like, okay, well, how am I going to work out outside the system? Am I going to like just flee? Am I going to run away from it? How am I going to like try and work with the Hermes Society, only work with it, you know, distribute pamphlets, lobby, da da da. And then
Right.
when Raimi dies, that's the death. And because interesting, like Raimi was always seen as like somebody that was working kind of within this system that he was set up for, right? And in some ways, like he obviously jumped at the chance of
Mm.
working with Hermes Society, but he also, you know, had been sent over from India and everything, and was
Uh-huh.
trying to get power from that system. And then when that blew up, then Robin's like, no, screw it. I'm, you know, like the only thing I can do is violence now. That's the only action that's left to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, even though the events of the book really precipitated the kind of rapid decline of everything and getting to the exciting climax, and it really kind of pushed Robin's character along. It didn't seem like Robin was just being drug along by the plot.
Mm-hmm.
He had choices throughout the entire way, and the path that Victoire went on was, it kind of illustrated that, right? Like he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to basically, suicidally bomb the British Empire, but Griffin and all the events that happened to him kind of it made sense. But maybe you're thinking that it was, I don't know. Do you think his character was pushed too far, or it just you didn't like his choices? Maybe.
Well, of course, I mean, again, like that's hard for me to say. I wish that some of his more extremist views / actions would have been foreshadowed a little bit better, I guess, during the first like 60% of the book. So maybe, and like maybe when he's working with Hermes, he has to like do something that actually compromises his morals instead of like just kind of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, right? Maybe he had to maybe not kill someone, but maybe like hurt somebody or something like that, where just kind of foreshadowing the decisions that he would have to make later on. I think so I don't know, like there's things that I think could have made that change and his actions and decisions at the ending of the book a little bit more compelling / like made them make it a little bit more sense within his character.
So maybe you were thinking maybe there's room for some kind of happy ending. Not that the ending was completely, I mean, it was a tragic ending for sure. But I think the fact that Victoire kind of continued and carried the torch a bit provided some hope for the world. Honestly, I think, and I'm not going to do any, I'll try not to do like spoilers for Poppy War, but just like having read the Poppy War, I kind of, that almost like clued me into like, this is probably not going to be a happy ending. Like this is going to be tragic because I've seen it played out before in her other books.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I kind of kept thinking is like he was going to develop like a nuclear technology that was going to be able to like blast England based on, I guess we don't want to do spoilers for the Poppy War, but kind of based on events in the Poppy War. I thought that might be what it was
It
leading
did
to,
foreshadow. I mean, it did foreshadow the way that they took down the tower. That was like one of the first. It's like the first thing they were told when they entered Babel. Like, don't actually. What was it? You're not supposed to link translate, something like that.
Oh shoot, like the word translate or something like that,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
that's how they ended up blowing everything up.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. That was basically it. What else? I mean, feels like those are the themes. Did we? Hopefully, we did that justice. I mean, I feel like we did, because I feel like I've thought about this a bit, and I think it was cool because like we said earlier in the non-spoiler part, like I really appreciated getting a really authentic view into colonialism and also just kind of like regular life as a minority, which is cool. And I connected with a bit as well. Like, as a disabled person, I feel like sometimes I feel similar ways, like you're a minority in different ways. And so there are those things where you like try to connect with people, but you can't because you have such different worldviews. And there's like, subtle slights that happen. And obviously they're different. I don't want to, equate too much of like ethnic minority to disability, but there are some things that I was able to connect with as a minority in a different way. So I thought that was cool. And it was part of the reason why I feel like it felt so authentic, because I saw, some of my life experiences and some of that too.
Yeah. There's a little more thought that I had about the pacing. For a while, it kind of bugged me how it moved so fast, how like 60% of the book roughly was this happy-go-lucky kind of
it was a little meandering at the beginning.
So I think, and then I had this thought that like that needed, like Robin needed to feel a loss when he decided to blow that up, right? Like, even if it would have been switched where it was like 40%, 60%, 40% at the school, 60% after he left, like, just generally speaking, he needed to like I felt that loss as a reader, I guess. Like, here's this setting that was really well built out, like that I love spending time in. Immediately, like I felt like I would know what it would be like to go to school there, and to like, go back to your room and be able to go get crepes or not crepes, but like see all these things happen. And I felt like I could put myself there. And then when that was blown up, I felt like a loss. And so I feel like that needed to be there for Robin, for Robin to feel that loss, and for the reader to feel that loss. So that kind of helped me recontextualize the pacing issues that I had been planning on talking about. Anyway, just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
And I like that after Robin kills Lovell and they're trying to figure out like, okay, how do we deal with this? I like that they basically deny that they have to lose everything, all the familiarity of the world. They just deny that up until the very last moment when they're like, oh crap, like we're found out. Now we need to come up with a different option. But they're thinking like, oh, somehow we could get back to Oxford and they wouldn't realize he's gone, or we could just kind of like write it off, and they're not able to ever like really form any kind of coherent plan. But it just feels, I mean, it feels like how you would deal with something like this. And I don't know. I mean, obviously I've never killed anyone trying to cover it up, or
I mean, there was that one time, Stephen.
Yeah, right. Shoot. But you'd want to preserve. It makes sense that you'd want to preserve your normal life for as long as possible.
Yeah. It is interesting. And it's interesting that they didn't even consider his like other estate with his like wife and kids there. Like they just kind of thought about Babel or Oxford. They thought about, like the state that Robin grew up on. They thought about those things, but like they didn't really even consider that like his other family would be like questioning where he was at. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then obviously like he has like correspondence that he needs, and they like kind of did a cursory thing. But yeah, it feels like what a bunch of, young adults would kind of act like in that setting, that were naive to the ways of the world in that sense,
Book smart, definitely not street smart.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, or should we do you have a worst of the best for Babel? I could throw one out. Yeah,
I got one. Griffin's death.
So
Oh, sorry.
So this is the segment, if you're new to the show somehow, where we talk about something that we enjoy, but like one little detail that kind of we thought, we could tweak that and make that a little better. We didn't enjoy this one small detail. So go ahead.
Yeah, the way that Griffin's death was handled, I think, like it could have been handled a little bit better. His whole relationship with what was that tool's name that killed him?
The really revered scholar guy. Yeah. What's that dude's name? Yeah. He had kind of like a pretty classical British sounding name.
Yeah. Shoot. Anyway, yes, like their whole
William something.
I
don't know. Yeah. It's not William. I'm just throwing out names. Yeah.
Their whole relationship with their cohort seemed like there could have been like a whole backstory given to it with what's the other girl's name that was killed, that Griffin killed? Shoot. These are the type of things that I should be remembering.
Right. If you're listening,
Susie or something or other. Anyway, that whole like backstory was confined to like a footnote, right?
Yeah,
where
it was a footnote.
Yeah, whereas like they both like loved her / like it drove a wedge between them that would never be repaired, and they both like their relationship at one point was like akin to like Robin and Raimi's or something like that, where they were super close, and then like they did stuff that drove them further and further apart. I kind of wish that either that footnote wasn't in there, to where you just could assume that, and it was just like one line was dropped where you got this whole thing, or if you do go the footnote route where it's like a whole chat, like they have interludes with other 4 characters or other 3 characters. Like there could have been an interlude with Griffin where they're in school or something, like there was, those interludes had a chance to play with time and characters and setting. So I feel like
the Griffin backstory. Griffin, confides what had happened in his life a little bit more.
Yeah, or like you just in one of those interludes, you get a day in the life with Griffin and his cohort. Like I think that could have been really cool. And then so if you're gonna like take a few pages like they did with the footnote and give that backstory, like I feel like she should fully committed and done it as an interlude, or just keep it really where it's up to the reader's imagination what type of relationship they had. The way that it ended up, like the book could have standed to be like a little bit longer. Like it's not a super long book, so like one more interlude in there like could have worked or something. But I don't know. I feel like that was the worst of the best for me.
We need more William, Susie, and Griffin. Yeah, whatever their names are.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine is, this is gonna sound weird because we talked about how much we enjoyed the themes and everything, but mine is like the themes, because even though I thought it was brilliantly done, I almost felt like towards the end it got to be a bit heavy-handed, where like I really did understand the ideas that were being set, and I was able to get inside the characters' heads really well, and it was really well written and really well crafted. But by the end, I just felt like it was too heavy-handed. There's just too much of it. It was being repeated over and over again, and I had already gotten it. I'd already kind of had plenty of time to think about it, and I felt like a little more subtle touch, at least for me, in my opinion, could have served the story a little bit better, and maybe the book could have been a little bit shorter, or we could have swapped out maybe a monologue or 2 of these ideas for the Griffin backstory instead. And I think I understand. I mean, this is obviously really important to the author, to Rebecca Kwong, and I feel like she wanted to make sure that her readers were understanding, and it felt really authentic, and it felt like it was lived in and everything. And honestly, like if I was writing this story and it was something that I was really passionate about and was coming from me, I would want to do the same thing. I would want to make sure that there was, like leaving no doubt so readers would understand exactly what I was trying to get across. But I feel like maybe the editor should have like pressed her a little bit more to be like, we really get it. I think everyone's going to get it. And I think maybe we could like cut out a few pages here or there and just kind of increase, let's move the story along a little bit, kind of help with the pacing.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think the interesting question is, would it have been too much for like 19-year-old you? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Do you think, you've obviously had like a lot of life experiences, 30, like I feel like for us, yeah, it was a little like I feel like we both wrestled with these things in different ways already. So I think it does feel a little bit much.
Yeah, that's,
but like
that's fair.
if you're a senior in high school reading this, you know, I feel like I don't know if it would have been too much for me, at least. Like I feel like it would have, you know, been kind of necessary.
You mean there's not as much room for the subtlety that I'm decrying here if you're younger, because you need that really spelled out for you. Like as a senior in high school, you need to be beat on the head with interesting ideas in order for them to work.
Kind of, yeah. Like a book that that was really influential to me that I read as a senior in high school was the Poisonwood Bible, and that like is not subtle at all with its themes, right? It like hits you over the head with them, and so you know, and it was effective for me, and I still feel like it's one of my you know favorite books because it did that, and because it wasn't very subtle with its themes. So you know, I don't think you're wrong. Like obviously that was your experience reading them, and I had a similar experience reading through this where I'm like, yeah, from like I think it could have been a little bit toned down, but for the people it's geared towards, the new adult kind of is again what I'm framing in my head as. I think it works. Like, you know, I think that that's a decision that Rebecca Kwong and probably her editing team and stuff kind of was deliberate about, you know. So
yeah, okay. I think that's a totally fair rebuttal. I accept it.
I mean, no, I still think like the themes are like kind of the best part of the book, but you're saying that the worst part about them is that they were too heavy-handed for you. I think that's like a fair assessment. Like one of the best parts of the book could have been handled a little bit better had it been done a little bit different way. That's what the worst of the best is all about, right? So
that is what it's about. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, let us know in the comment. This is one that I feel like will come up on the fantasy subreddit quite a bit. I'm not on the fantasy subreddit enough to actually know if that's true, but I feel like there's a lot of ways you could take this, and there's going to be people, unfortunately, you know, there's going to be people that really dislike this book. There's going to be people that really love this book. Hopefully there's a good amount of people who are open-minded enough about this book to think like, okay, this is a different worldview. And, you know, maybe it makes people think a little bit more. I'm sure that Rebecca Kwong would love that. So we'll see, but yeah, let us know in the comments what you thought.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for the conversation, Stephen. Looking forward to talk more about on Discord and in the comments below. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Josh. See you.
All right.